How and where the top legends of the Wild West died. Did you know that one of the legends we'll meet today bought a 15,000-acre cattle ranch in Argentina, lived there under his real name, and hosted phonograph spinning parties for the neighbors? We'll uncover that surprise soon enough. But for now, saddle up, lean in, and let's ride straight into the heart of Wild West lore. Bartholomew William Barclay Masterson was born on November 26, 1853, in a snow-churned farmhouse near Henryville, Quebec, second of 7 children born to a restless Irish wheat farmer. Wartime rumor and cheap land jolted the clan south to Kansas, where teenage Bat swapped homework for hauling freight on the Santa Fe Trail. Nights around buffalo chip fires turned him into a crack rifleman, and during the hide boom of 1872 to 73 he and brother Ed piled thousands of shaggy robes, selling them in shaky frontier depots, while Comanche war parties rode the horizon. Trouble came stalking near Sweetwater, Texas, in 1876 when a cavalry deserter named Sergeant Melvin King drew on Bat over a dancehall girl called Molly Brennan. 2 revolver shots later, King lay cooling, Brennan lay dying, and Bat staggered into the street with a pelvis slug that left his trademark tilt. Sympathy followed the wound. Respect followed the poised return fire. Dodge City's alderman promptly handed him a deputy's badge. With Wyatt Earp patrolling the other end of Front Street, Bat learned that a steady voice could scatter gun smoke before it formed. He broke up saloon brawls, walked trail drivers to jail like errant calves, and, after being elected Ford County Sheriff at 25, chased train robbers across the Llano Estacado, hauling them back in irons and newspaper glory. Violence, like thunder, echoes. On April 9, 1878, gunfire crippled Marshal Ed Masterson outside the Lady Gay Saloon. Bat answered with a shotgun blast that halted both assassins mid-stride, then cradled Ed until the last heartbeat faded. Grief deepened the set of his jaw, but never iced the humor behind his gray eyes. He soon wore the Marshal's star in Trinidad, Colorado, refereed the bloodless Royal Gorge Railroad War, and in 1883 headed the famous Dodge City Peace Commission, backing gambler Luke Short against a crooked mayor. The tintype of that posse, Masterson front row center in natty waistcoat and derby, proved reputations now did more work than revolvers. Their arrival ended the dispute without a single shot. Bat's career shape-shifted with the West itself. He scouted for the Santa Fe Railway, dealt faro in Denver's plush Broadmoor rooms, invested in gold mines that never glittered, and carried the Deputy U.S. Marshal's commission for southern Kansas. By 40, he had traded buckskin for tailored wool, packing hair tonic, silk socks, and a gold-headed cane even on desert stagecoaches. Prize fighting's rise caught his imagination. His knack for fair dealing made him the preferred referee for championship bouts from El Paso to Madison Square Garden. President Theodore Roosevelt, enthralled by frontier yarns, invited him to the White House and slipped him minor federal posts, steady checks tucked beside racetrack wagers. In 1902, Bat settled in New York City and pinned on his last badge, sporting editor, Morning Telegraph. 3 columns a week poured from his Remington typewriter, peppery sketches of boxers, gamblers, Broadway swells, and the occasional reminiscence of buffalo dung fires under a Kansas moon. He chronicled Jack Johnson's rise with the same precise eye once used to line up pistol sights, seasoning praise with barbs sharp enough to bruise heavyweight egos. Yet the old Colt Frontier revolver still occupied his desk drawer, oiled and loaded, a paperweight reminder that words had replaced bullets largely by his own choice. On October 25, 1921, after filing copy praising lightweight Kid Gleason, Masterson leaned back, lit a mahogany stem pipe, and let his heart seize mid-draw. The newsroom boy found him moments later, pencil wedged between stiff fingers, smoke curling like ghost town dust around the brim of his derby. At 67, he had outlived most pistoliers, gambling debts, and even the raw era that birthed him. They buried him beneath an unpretentious granite block in Woodlawn Cemetery in the Bronx, far from buffalo grass, but close to the printing presses that crowned his second life. Today, tourists pass the stone hardly suspecting the rare frontier gunman who traded gun smoke for newsprint and died with a headline instead of a warrant to his name. Martha Jane Canary burst into the world on May 1, 1852, near the banks of Missouri's muddy Platte. angular and loud as a blue jay at dawn. The Canary clan rattled west in a Conestoga when she was 12, chasing rumors of gold at Virginia City. By the time their oxen bowed under Nevada sun, both parents lay in shallow graves, and the orphan brood faced the frontier without fence or map. Martha Jane answered hardship with 2 borrowed Colts, a battered Sharps rifle, and a vow never again to rely on anyone who could not swing into a saddle by sundown. She learned to ride rough stock, guiding Army supply trains through Montana territory, her hat brim stitched with crow feathers, buckskins smeared with axle grease. A freighter's bullwhip cracked her nickname into permanence. After Jane rallied frightened mules through a Cheyenne war party, he barked, "That gal courted calamity," and whipped it besides. The anecdote galloped faster than telegraph wire. In every saloon from Fort Laramie to Bannack, she was simply Calamity Jane, a title she wore like silver spurs. In 1872, she enlisted as a scout under General George Crook, guiding columns along the Powder River while trading body jokes with mule skinners. Her shooting eye proved steady, her tongue sharper. During the spring campaign, she rode 50 miles through sleet to fetch a doctor for a wounded officer, then hauled the man back across swollen creeks slung over her pony's neck. The exploit earned her an Army commendation and a fresh keg of whiskey, both of which she displayed with equal pride. Gold fever soon shifted the human tide to the Black Hills, and Calamity swung with it, drifting into Deadwood's embryo of tints and false front stores in the summer of '76. The town's brand new celebrity, Wild Bill Hickok, spotted her at the number 10 card room and nodded a gentleman's greeting. Dime novel writers inflated that courteous nod into a frontier romance that would live longer than either of them. Whether friend, lover, or merely fellow pilgrim, Hickok rated her courage high. When he was shot in the back that August, Jane supposedly threatened to gut the killer herself, a promise rendered moot by the Deadwood courts but oft repeated at bar counters for decades. She stayed after Hickok's pine box settled on Boot Hill, earning grub wages as teamster, stagecoach guard, and occasional dance hall comic. When smallpox swept Deadwood in 1878, Calamity scrubbed dishes, changed linens, and spoon-fed medicine to miners no one else would touch. She lost 3 patients in one night, washed their clothes at dawn, and returned to the sick ward humming, "Shall we gather at the river?" The town buried its dead quicker than rumors, yet every survivor remembered the buckskin angel who traded 6 shooters for bedpans without being asked. East Coast showmen sniffed profit in such contradictions. In 1895, Buffalo Bill Cody hired Jane for his Wild West extravaganza. She rode side saddle at a gallop, rifle cracking balloons while narrators spun yarns of rescued settlers, Comanche chases, and non-existent matrimony to Hickok. She pocketed decent wages, squandered them on rot-gut bourbon, then charmed reporters with slurred monologues equal parts heroism and hokum. Her audience never cared which lines were true. In an age of kerosene headlines, Calamity Jane was print-ready myth made flesh. Years of barroom betting, prairie winters, and tin-cup whiskey gnawed her lungs. By 1903, she was rattling in a wagon on the Belfield Deadwood stage, coughing blood into a bandana, yet still cracking jokes about undertakers needing new business. On August 1st, she collapsed at the Callaway Hotel in Terry, South Dakota. Legend says her last request was, "Bury me beside Bill," and the townsfolk obliged. They laid her buckskin-wrapped remains next to Hickok in Mount Moriah Cemetery, claiming the unlikely pair would argue less in eternity than they had in life. Today wind combs through ponderosa pines above Deadwood, rattling graveyard iron like distant spurs. Visitors read her tilted stone, Calamity Jane, 1852 to 1903, pioneer of the plains, and picture a lanky woman astride a lathered Mustang, eyes squinting into sun-scorched distance, forever chasing calamity, not to flee it, but to ride it down and make it tell a good story. Robert Leroy Parker arrived on April 13, 1866, at a Mormon homestead near Beaver, Utah, eldest son of English emigres who churned butter by lamplight and expected scripture at breakfast. Young Rob preferred horseflesh to hymnals. At 14, he met rustler Mike Cassidy, a sun-creased cowpuncher who taught him how to doctor a brand, crack a safe, and laugh while doing both. By 18, he'd ridden off with a borrowed saddle and a promise to adopt his mentor's surname, Cassidy. once he needed a smoke trail alias. That moment came early on June 24, 1889. Rob, now George Cassidy, soon Butch for his stint at a Rock Springs butcher shop, stepped into the San Miguel Bank of Telluride with two partners, revolvers low, voices polite. They left with $21,000 and a fresh vow to outpace every posse between the Dolores River and the Continental Divide. Over the next decade, Cassidy stitched together the Wild Bunch: Dapper Sundance Kid, Hard-Fisted Kid Curry, scattergun artist Elsie Lay, and a rotating cast of saddle-wise misfits. They robbed the Montpelier, Idaho, bank in 1896, danced with their loot at a 4th of July picnic, then split the Union Pacific's overland flyer near Wilcox, Wyoming, in 1899, blasting the express car to scrap and thumbing noses at Pinkerton detectives who combed the sagebrush in their wake. A famous lensman in Fort Worth snapped the gang in bowler hats and starched collars, unaware the print would hang in every sheriff's office west of the Missouri. The photo's smirking ease summed up Cassidy himself: courteous to clerks, generous to ranch hands, yet calculating as a railroad watch. He planned jobs with surveyor's precision, fresh horses cached along the route, dynamite packed just so, retreat trails mapped by moonlight. Whereas Curry's trigger answered every insult, Butch favored minimal blood and maximum misdirection. Clerks later recalled him tipping his hat and calling them sir, even while emptying the vault. Pressure, like prairie thunderheads, kept building. Pinkerton chief Charlie Siringo branded the gang the most successful train robbers in American history and flooded the frontier with circulars. Butch read the wanted posters, weighed shrinking options, and chose distance over gun smoke. In February 1901, he boarded a steamer at New York Harbor alongside Sundance and Sundance's schoolteacher sweetheart, Etta Place, bound for Buenos Aires with $40,000 stitched into saddle skirts. Argentina offered wide grass and wider anonymity. The trio bought a 15,000-acre spread near Cholula, branded cattle under their real names, and hosted neighbors with Utah sourdough bread and ballroom phonograph records. Yet honest sunsets proved scarce. When local gendarmes received Pinkerton alerts, Butch sold the ranch and returned to old habits, holding up the Banco de Tarapaca in Rio Gallegos, then a Pacific Mining Company payroll mule train outside Calchin. Each haul bought a little more freedom and a lot more pursuit. By 1906, the threesome had drifted to Bolivia, land of tin bars and thin mountain air. Etta, weary of perpetual flight, slipped back to the States. Butch and Sundance signed on as muleteers for the Concordia Tin Mine while scouting their next take. On November 4, 1908, two masked North Americans robbed the Arameo Parole convoy near San Vicente, seizing 91,000 pesos and vanishing into copper-colored ravines. Bolivian cavalry cornered them 2 days later in a mud brick lodging house. Witnesses heard rifle fire, a lull, then a single final pistol shot. When the soldiers stormed the room, both outlaws lay sprawled, one wounded in the arm, the other with a fatal chest hole, and a Mauser between them suggested a mercy killing over capture. Papers swore the dead were Cassidy and Longabout. No Yankee bodies were ever shipped home, and rumors still claim Butch slinked north under yet another name, age creasing the grin that once charmed bank tellers. John Henry Holiday inhaled his first breath on August 14, 1851, beneath the moss-draped oaks of Griffin, Georgia, born to a veteran father who preached honor and a music-loving mother who played gentle lullabies, until tuberculosis dragged her to an early grave. At 19, he graduated near the top of the Pennsylvania College of Dental Surgery, returned south with a bright diploma and brighter prospects, and opened a tiny office where patients praised his delicate touch. But the same red cough that felled his mother bloomed in his lungs. A Savannah specialist sentenced him to months, maybe years, if he stayed in the humid East. Go where the air is thin and dry, the doctor advised. Holiday gathered his gold fillings, a slim medical trunk, and a Colt named Matty Blaylock, soon traded for a Colt revolver, and boarded a westbound train. Dallas in 1873 proved equal parts tonic and temptation. He partnered in a dental parlor by day, shuffled cards in smoky saloons by night, and soon realized a winning poker hand paid better than molar extractions. Consumption carved hollows under his cheekbones. Gamblers whispered the pale gentleman with the velvet drawl carried death, in more than one form. The nickname arrived on a gust of cigar smoke. "Let's have Doc settle the pot," a dealer joked, and it stuck like a check raise. Doc's skill with cards matched his flair with a side-trigger Remington. In Fort Griffin, he met Wyatt Earp, tall, taciturn, another man balancing on the knife edge between law and sin. When two cow thieves plotted to bushwhack Wyatt outside the Beehive Saloon, Holiday strode from the shadows, a derringer hidden along his wrist, and changed the equation in a heartbeat. The pair forged a friendship fire-tempered by mutual respect. Wyatt provided badges. Doc supplied steel nerve in tight corners. Dodge City spiraled next, nights of faro dealing, coughing fits damped by Kentucky bourbon, and gun smoke clearing to reveal Holiday still upright while louder men lay bleeding. Doctors said he wouldn't survive a Kansas winter, so he followed the Earps south to booming Tombstone, Arizona territory, a silver-rich grid of clabbered dreams balanced atop a powder keg of rustlers and politics. There Doc practiced dentistry exactly once, extracting a premature molar from drunken Johnny Tyler with the butt of his revolver. From then on he stuck to cards, whiskey, and the thin satisfaction of Wyatt's camaraderie. October 26, 1881, the OK Corral showdown. 30 seconds of thunder in a vacant lot behind Fly's photography studio. Doc, wrapped in a gray Ulster coat, an unlit cigarette clenched between narrow teeth, opened fire with a borrowed 10-gauge shotgun, then fanned his nickel-plated lightning. When the dust settled, 3 cowboys lay dead. Virgil and Morgan Earp were wounded, Wyatt's duster was perforated, and Doc Holiday, tuberculosis rattling deep, walked away with a crease in his hip and the taste of his own blood in his throat. Cowboy vengeance followed. After assassins crippled Virgil and murdered Morgan, Wyatt formed a vendetta posse. Doc rode shotgun through the San Pedro Valley, his hacking cough punctuating bursts of gunfire that ended Curly Bill Brocious amid mesquite shadows. Territorial warrants soon trailed them clear to Colorado. In Denver, Doc surrendered peacefully, posted bond with Earp's help, then drifted to the high mining camps, saloon to saloon, cough to cough, winning pots, losing weight. In May 1887, he checked into the Hot Springs Resort at Glenwood Springs, Colorado, gambling that sulfur vapors might soothe lungs beyond medicine's reach. They did not. On November 8th, he awoke breathless, glanced at his bare feet. He'd always sworn he would die with boots on, and smiled thinly. "This is funny," he whispered, and slipped away at 36. Locals buried him on a pine-studded hill in Linwood Cemetery. The exact grave vanished among shifting stones, leaving only a marble cenotaph for visitors to photograph. Whoa there, partner, the campfire's still crackling. Saddle up and tap the video below to uncover how other jaw-dropping legends of the frontier faced their final reckonings. Daring escapes, twist-filled showdowns, and the surprising spots where they finally hung their hats. The next tale is just a click away.